Hello, my name is METİN Arıdaşır. This is 277th part of explanation of my theory. According to my theory and my formulas, simultaneously determine momentum and position of a photon on an electron motion form by Arıdaşır, me. 1. As I told you before, a photon is nothing but an inseparable imaginary point on the electron motion form. The wavelength of the photon is its position on the electron motion form. This is electron motion form at rest. Every point, say here, a photon, inseparable point, and wavelength, it has wavelength. Okay, wavelength, wavelength, wavelength. And electron motion on electron motion form, the wavelength of the photon is its position on the electron motion form. This means lambda normal in that 91.155 nanometer wavelength is for at rest electron motion form wavelength of every electron motion form. Yes. 2. Because the motion of a photon is continuous, angular, spherical and ring-shaped, it has angular momentum, tangential velocity, wavelength, mass, etc. And because a free electron motion form produces and propagates repetitive spherical ring-shaped intertwined waves, if you follow each successive wave's point in the same direction as a discontinuous line, you can compute the point wave photon velocity also. 3. I told you before, the wavelength of the photon is its position on the electron motion form. Right side, wrong. In accepted physics theories, Heisenberg uncertainty principle is wrong. Okay. This is nothing but point wavelength of electron motion form on and point wavelength of photon wavelength of an electron motion form on a certain point. Okay. If electron motion form's velocity, relocating velocity is 0, delta lambda will be 0, then lambda normal at rest wavelength here for every photon. Okay. This is certain point value, not an interval. There is no probability. Okay. Here, momentum. There are some of my formulas. Here, variable Planck's constant. Angular momentum of photon is Planck's constant, as I told you before. Here, at rest, not relocating electron motion form. Here, in this direction, say, at 2.58 10 to the 8 meter per second, near the speed of light, approx not just, relocating velocity, electron motion form. Then it changes. Okay, I will tell you now. Each point, wavelength, wave velocity, etc. will change if electron motion form has velocity, relocating velocity. Yes. Four, if an electron motion form is not relocating, the momentum and position of every point, okay, here, on the motion sphere of electron motion form are the same, and since the position of a photon is corresponding wavelength, and since the photon has mass, we can know its momentum and velocity simultaneously. What you say? An electron is confined in an atom. What we can say, according to my theory and my formulas, a photon, as if imaginary point, because of electron motion form itself, spherical ring-shaped, totally motion form, cycling, and producing and propagating intertwined successive waves, ring-shaped, spherical. And every point, if we drop a paint, say, on this electron motion form, this paint, say blue, will move, okay, will cycle, follow the surface cycle of electron motion form. Imaginary, inseparable part of electron motion form. Point of electron motion form is a photon. Yes. Yes, we can know its momentum and velocity simultaneously. And as if a photon is confined not on the surface, motion surface of an electron motion form. Five, if an electron motion form is relocating for each point, here, okay, here, this is motion direction, 0 degree direction, I say, 90 degree direction, perpendicular to motion, and opposite direction, motion direction, 180 degree, okay. Now, anisotropic stage of photon. Photon has mass. Photon's mass is variable, and without changing of frequency constant here, but for each point, its point wavelength, photon wavelength, here, this, at this, on this, these different points, different photons, wavelengths, point wave velocities, different, but same frequency. Speed of light, velocity of light is variable here, as I told you before. 5. If an electron motion form is relocating, for each photon on this electron motion form, energy, mass, point wavelength, point wave velocity, point tangential velocity, yes, point angular momentum, point momentum vary, change, depending on electron motion form's relocating velocity, direction, and orientation. As I showed you before, we can know each point's point wavelength. It means position and momentum simultaneously. Here, snapshot. Yes. And here, some of my formulas. VE electrons relocating velocity and wave number, lambda normal, initial at rest wavelength of an electron motion form. Here. So important, say. Point wave velocity, variable. Point photon wavelength, position, variable. Depending on electron motion form's velocity, orientation, and motion direction. And is wave number. Okay, here. And Planck's constant is nothing but angular momentum of a photon on electron motion form, and if electron motion form is relocating, angular momentum of photon or Planck's constant vary, change. Okay. Yes. Snapshot. Then here. Yes. According to my theory and my formulas, I have computed at this point, on this point, on this point, on this point, on this point, on this point, photons, momentum, and position, wavelength. This electron motion form, while it is at rest, snapshot again, it has 91.155 nanometer wavelength size. But when this electron motion form, let's say when we apply, say 100 volt, applying voltage, I have other formulas about that, but I don't want to confuse your mind now. I have told you before, again and again. Yes. 258,920 kilometers per second. Approximately, not just speed of light, near the speed of light, electron motion form in this 0 degree direction. When it is relocating at this velocity, here the shape of the electron motion form. This is shortened wavelength, 0 degree direction here. And 0 degree direction, photon has certain 12.183 nanometer position, and simultaneously this photon has 387.63 10 to the minus 27 kilogram per second momentum. At this point, simultaneously, according to my theory and my formulas, we can determine, and I determined that these two values, momentum and position, simultaneously. Here, 30 degree direction point photon, what is its position? 23.02 nanometer. What is its momentum? 113.94 10 to the minus 27 kilogram per second. 45 degree photon, this point, on electron motion form, its position is 35.52 nanometer and its momentum is 47.85 10 to the minus 27 kilogram per second. Then for 135 degree on this degree point photon, position is absolute value 34.3 nanometer and momentum 3.06 10 to the minus 27 kilogram per second, and opposite direction 180 direction, its position, this photon at this point, position is 169.8 nanometer and its momentum is 2.09 10 to the minus 27 kilogram per second. Here. Therefore, whether electron motion form is at rest or in motion, according to my theory and my formulas,